Good afternoon, everybody, here on this Monday, June 9th, 2025. I have all of your stories for your rush hour ride home, and it is an insane day today. We will be discussing the massive dismissal of Blake Lively versus Justin Baldoni. Justin's countersuit of $400 million dismissed by the judge. I'm going to get into that, what this means. Also, new information with Taylor Swift and Scooter Braun, as Scooter Braun is opening up about his side of the story, why he thought he could have been besties with Taylor. We've also got Laura Owens, as her father is requesting money for his illness. Some people believe this, though, is money to pay for their attorney, as she's been charged with 7 felonies. We'll have that. And also more on the LA riots. And Greta Thunberg has been kidnapped, so says the media. I'm going to dive into this story. Kidnapped by the Israeli forces or people working with the Israeli forces. Again, it's an ongoing story, so give a little grace as we figure this one out. Her flotilla has been heading towards Gaza to help out with humanitarian aid. They claim they've been victims of what might be chemical attacks meant to disrupt the baby formula they were delivering. I know, it's insane. It's a wild day of news. All these stories and more happening right now on The Rush. Okay, we're going to have the Justin Baldoni, Blake Lively story next. We did a breaking news video specifically on YouTube, but for those that listen only to the morning and afternoon rush, we'll have full context towards that massive movement in the judge deciding to dismiss his claims. I mean, it's wild. But first, we have Taylor Swift and her beef with Scooter Braun. Scooter Braun bought the company that owned her masters. She was so mad at Scooter Braun and the fact that she didn't have a chance to buy her own masters outright that she re-recorded almost all of the albums, right? Something like 5 out of 6 or 6 out of 7. She's made a massive amount of money, but Scooter Braun has his side of the story to share. Here he is talking about just that.
When I bought Big Machine, I thought I was going to work with all the artists on Big Machine. I thought it was going to be like an exciting thing. I knew that Taylor, she and I had only met 3 times, I think in my life, 3 or 4 times. And one of the times, it was years earlier, it was really a great engagement. She invited me to her private party and we respected each other. We had a great engagement. In between that time, since I'd seen her last, I started managing Kanye West. I managed Justin Bieber. I knew she didn't get along with them.
I mean, doesn't get along with them is an understatement. I would be the same way as Taylor Swift here. If the manager of my arch enemy then bought the rights to my records, I'd be like, what the heck? But, you know, there's also the side where he says she had the chance to buy them at a fair value. But now Taylor Swift officially owns them. But, you know, was Scooter Braun sort of operating in the best interest of everyone involved? You know, I feel like this is one of those people will have their opinions, but never fully, the truth will always be kind of very subjective.
I had a feeling, this is where my arrogance came in. I had a feeling she probably didn't like me because I managed them, but I thought that once this announcement happened, she would talk to me, see who I am, and we would work together. And the announcement came out, and I'm calling Scott Borchetta and saying, hey, send me her number. I just talked to Thomas Rhett, and he's excited. And I just talked to, this person, and they're excited. And I'm calling, Florida Georgia line next. And, I'm going to get you. And then this Tumblr comes out, and it says all this stuff. And I was just like shocked. And it's been 5-6 years. I don't need to go back into it. But what I can tell you is everything in life is a gift. Having that experience allows me to have empathy for the people I worked with, who I would always say, yeah, I understand, but I never knew what it was like to be on the global stage like that. I never knew what criticism like that felt like. And like I told you, the biggest gift that I got from that was understanding that all the praise I had received up until that moment was not deserved. And all the hate I got after that moment was not deserved.
Wow.
Because none of these people knew me.
Yeah. And listen, I on a much smaller level understand what it's like to be mischaracterized by the internet. And I'm actually kind of feeling like Scooter Braun might not be a bad guy, right? We saw stuff that came out with him and Justin Bieber where he was trying to prevent Justin Bieber from selling his masters for tax reasons. He was kind of like working with him. And obviously you think of the manager as the bad guy. They get the commission or whatever. But, I don't know. I don't know. I'm no closer to knowing whose side to believe, but I also can understand if you're Taylor Swift not wanting to give this guy an inch if he was associated with people that you consider your enemies, that being Kanye West. Now, if he's got evidence that Taylor Swift had a chance to buy the records before he bought them, then I kind of think you shouldn't have any beef with Scooter, because business is business. It kind of sounds to me like Taylor Swift probably has more beef with the industry as a whole, because artists are often exploited, and until you're like a bazillionaire, you don't have the money to buy your masters back. Either way, let bygones be bygones. Taylor's got the master. She won in the end. Her audience got bigger. She got to recreate and resell all of her albums, so good for her. All right, here's the big story. Golly, this broke out of nowhere. Justin Baldoni loses his legal battle with Blake. His lawyers are dismissed. So here's the interesting, and by the way, it's a poor headline, but here's what's interesting about this. In fact, you know what? I'll share what TMZ has to say, and then I'll share maybe a more optimistic take. Have a listen.
Blake Lively just won the lawsuit against Justin Baldoni in its entirety. Baldoni had sued Lively, Reynolds, and the New York Times, alleging that they had conspired to defame her in an article written by the Times. The judge said none of it amounts to anything and dismissed the case in its entirety. He said basically it all relates to a lawsuit that Lively filed against him, a civil rights complaint alleging sexual wrongdoing by Baldoni. The judge said all the reporting that the Times did was significantly related to that complaint, and therefore it could not form the basis of a defamation claim.
And we kind of assumed that the New York Times defamation suit would get dismissed, only because it's very hard to sue for defamation, especially, and by the way, here's what's frustrating to people. It doesn't mean that Blake Lively was telling the truth, right? Here's an interesting legal breakdown from the It Ends With Lawsuits subreddit, where they say the reason why this suit was dismissed was Rule 47, litigation privilege. That's why it was thrown out. It protects people like Blake Lively who make statements as part of legal proceedings, even if the statements are false or damaging. So because Blake Lively filed the complaint, that she filed, and the New York Times reported on that complaint, even though they had it probably for 2 months beforehand, according to the metadata, even though that's all true, that's privileged. You're allowed to make those accusations without fear of defamation through the court system. The only path left for Justin would be to focus on public, non-legal statements that aren't covered by that privilege, but those come with their own legal hurdles. Maybe, again, that's Ryan Reynolds. He said a hell of a lot of things, but he also said a lot of those things through his own response to the defamation lawsuits. So at this point, it might be that Justin Baldoni's only path forward is to defend himself against the lawsuits by Blake Lively. Will this change public opinion? Probably a little bit, because there are a lot of people that are already coming out and hitting the quote unquote pro Justin Baldoni subreddits, like It Ends With Lawsuit, pretty pro Justin Baldoni. And they're kind of taking a victory lap here. Someone said Brian Friedman is a joke. Brian Friedman spent months making defamatory, harassing, and inflammatory statements to every news outlet and podcast that would listen. Blake Lively's lawyers put their heads down and focused on building a strong case. The writing was on the wall when the Leslie Sloan defamation claim began to fall apart. They can amend their complaint, but it doesn't change anything. The defamation and extortion claims are out. The two claims that were the focus of his media smear campaign are against Blake Lively. Friedman knew his case was crumbling, and that's why he attempted to distract the public with the Taylor Swift nonsense and the unsubstantiated claims against Gottlieb. Brian Friedman is a PR lawyer taking on world-class lawyers, and he will lose. Now, again, a lot of this is someone's opinion, but I will say it will be interesting whether or not the Taylor Swift information comes out. You have to imagine, if you're Taylor Swift and you are pro Blake Lively, that all of these things that came out about Taylor Swift's dad being a source, you would think Taylor Swift, the largest pop star in the world, would make a statement saying, I stand by Blake Lively, none of this is substantiated. The fact that she has remained silent makes me still believe that she is working with Brian Friedman, Justin Baldoni's attorney, to expose what she believes is extortion. I don't believe Blake Lively's dad would call this extortion if he didn't believe it was. That being Blake Lively threatening Taylor Swift to make a public statement about her. The fact that we have not seen that public statement just goes to show that while some people think we're just reading a lot of fan fiction and drinking Kool-Aid, the fact that the fact that Taylor Swift has not said anything publicly is the strongest thing for me to believe like there's more to the story here. We'll have to see. I tell you what, let's take a quick break. Let's reset, and then we'll talk a little bit more about this and some other tea involving Blake Lively. That coming next. Today's podcast is sponsored by Rula. Finding the right mental health care should be simple and affordable, but for many, it's not. Finding the right provider can make getting help feel overwhelming. That's where Rula comes in. Rula connects you with in-network licensed therapists that accept most major insurance. Their users typically have a copay of $15 per session, making therapy more accessible than ever before. From finding the right therapist to helping you schedule appointments and monitoring your progress, Rula is there to help. Join the thousands who have already turned to Rula for support on their journey to better mental health and well-being. Getting started is easy. Just visit Rula.com/rushhour today. When you sign up, they'll ask how you heard about them. Please support our show by letting them know we sent you. It's a simple way to help us while you take the first step towards the care you deserve. Go to Rula.com/rushhour now and connect with a licensed therapist who truly cares. Your mental health matters. I teased this on the breaking news episode on YouTube today. And by the way, if you do want more, we'll continue to cover this dismissal as we await for the TikTok lawyers and experts to speak. So far, several Justin Baldoni, pro Justin Baldoni people have said, no, this isn't a loss for Justin. This is just a regrouping. But again, we'll have to see. Breaking news from Without a Crystal Ball on Instagram. Ryan Reynolds and Blake Lively never donated $2 million to the NAACP in 2019 or ever. Now, does this have anything to do with Justin Baldoni? Not really, other than to say it's interesting if this is true because they received their, Blake Lively received her sort of flowers in the Time magazine, influential people because of her donations. And maybe they did some matching donations, but it's very similar to the Johnny Depp versus Amber Heard case where Amber Heard pledged that she would donate money, but never actually donated money. Now, in the Johnny Depp versus Amber Heard case, that was important because that was money that she won, I think in her divorce settlement or whatever with Johnny Depp. In this case, it's just bad PR for Blake Lively to say she's this big advocate for, diversity and all these things, and then come to find out, well, how'd you lie about this? And it could be that she's so filthy rich, they don't even know how much money they did donate, but either way, interesting as Katie from Without a Crystal Ball really doubles down on kind of going after them. This is what investigative journalism looks like. She's showing us the math. Blake Lively was recently named a Titan by Time magazine in their 100 most influential people of 2025. Former director of NAACP Sherilyn Hill nominated Blake for her $2 million donation for the Legal Defense Fund in 2019. Eiffel praised Lively for her commitment to using her platform to help the causes of racial injustice and disparity. The problem, Blake never donated. And then she provides the information regarding that. Of course, donations would probably be something that would be, come out in tax paperwork and things like that. So either way, you can go to Without a Crystal Ball to read all about that. And that's just a sort of an example of the bad PR that's coming Blake's way for dragging this thing out. Now, with the news that Justin Baldoni's case was essentially dismissed, and again, we'll have to see what the amended, they can amend it and bring it back, but we'll have to see. With this news, I don't see a situation where Blake Lively settles. I think even if this is something where it's dismissed on technicality because she made these claims, can he prove she made false claims? I mean, that's what would be tough. I don't think so. It's such a gray area where she claims he was harassing her and a lot of the things she claims would have happened behind closed doors. She's provided zero evidence of it actually happening, but her claims are her claims, which is, what it does is it makes us have to have that radical critical thinking skills where we say, listen, even though he's not going to win some defamation lawsuit against her, if it stands that the judge dismissed it, will he have a chance to defend himself in front of a jury trial? And will audiences accept whatever spin that comes from Blake Lively's side? We will have to see. All right, let's go to Clayton Echard news. Bachelor Clayton Echard, of course, was embroiled in a lawsuit with Laura Owens when she claimed to be pregnant with his twins. Now we know Laura Owens is getting sued, is being charged with 7 felonies by the Maricopa County prosecutors. And her father is continuing to try to raise money for his illness. And again, I say he, it could be Laura for all we know. But he said, wanted to let you all know that the GoFundMe set up last year on my behalf by, of course, Laura Owens, it's assumed, is still active and remains a crucial source of support. If you're in a position to contribute or even just share the link with others, I'd be very appreciative. Please don't ever think about contributing if it would place any strain on your own finances. Since 1975, I've considered my KGO listeners to be more than just an audience. You've been an extended family. Yuck, woof, right? So he was actually running Facebook ads. And by the way, it's kind of tricky to run Facebook ads. There's no way he knew what he was doing. This is, in my opinion, the work of Laura Owens. She's being investigated. She's got to foot the bill for a new lawyer. And this is money that's coming in, organized by LL. Who the hell is LL? While no real reporters have looked into this already, I do encourage them, now that she's actually being charged with 7 counts of perjury, to look into the GoFundMe. Where are these funds going? If they're actually charging her with the crimes, you'd think they would have access to her bank accounts, right? Seeking Justice for All Victims says, thanks, Ron, for making it abundantly clear this money is going to his daughter's legal bills. This GoFundMe needs an investigation. Absolutely. And if you're GoFundMe, you should be cooperating with, you should be cooperating. And by the way, here's what's tricky about this. I'm going to say what's tricky about this. It could very well be that he has a big a big medical bill, and this money goes directly to his medical bill. But it's also true that he's got the family money that's going to pay for Laura Owens. So it's tricky because legally the money might be going to his cancer treatment or whatever, but it's loosening up money so that they can continue to put money to Laura's defense fund. Of course, her trial is in October, and I do not think the judge will be dismissing that. So more on that. Let's go to the immigrant. He was here on a student visa from like the age of 7, had no idea that he needed to renew it. And he was, this is Marcelo Gomez da Silva in Massachusetts. He was detained and has been released pending his hearing. But here's what his lawyer had to say about the absolute havoc that is going on here in, the sort of fear that is being brought to so many communities across our country.
This kid had no criminal record, so don't talk to me about only arresting criminals. I think DHS knows that this was a losing battle. They said in their own filing he has no criminal record. They're not trying to argue anything about his danger to the communities. This kid entered lawfully, so don't talk to me about going after people who came across the border. It shouldn't have happened in the first place. This is all a waste. Like, we disrupted a kid's life. We disrupted a community's life. These kids should be celebrating graduation. Like, they should be doing kid stuff. And it is a travesty and a waste of our judicial process to have to go through this. We have other actual problems to solve. Marcelo is not a problem.
There it is. Other problems to solve. Now, it is this fear that they're placing in all these communities that is taking a toll, as we watch now the protests in LA, in some cases have turned violent, as ICE officials are coming into the city and going into different communities within the city itself and disappearing people. And folks have a right to say, look, this is wrong. California is interesting too. The undocumented population actually pays something like $8 billion in taxes. We'll get into that part in a second here, but this is so interesting. Here's Gavin Newsom sharing a clip from the president. He says, the president of the United States just called for the arrest of a sitting governor. This is a day I hoped I would never see in America. Have a listen to this.
Tom Homan to come and arrest him. Should he do it? I would do it if I was Tom. I think it's great. Gavin likes the publicity, but I think it's...
All right, so it's very hard to hear, but the question was asked, would you arrest him? And he says, if I was Tom, the border saw, I would do it. This is absolutely wild. So Gavin Newsom says, I don't care if you're a Democrat or a Republican. This is a line we cannot cross as a nation. This is an unmistakable step towards authoritarianism. Now, we already know that, right? Trump's whole thing is, and Elon Musk, is like, let's break stuff and then will complain that it needs to be fixed after we break it. We're seeing that happen with Medicare, Medicaid. Like they're making Social Security so unbearably, difficult to use so that then they can say, look, it doesn't even work. We got to scrap it for something better. Here we have the people of Los Angeles fighting. And I love the irony here. Listen, here's the truth, right? Immigrants, undocumented immigrants will do a lot of jobs that a lot of Americans just simply will not do. And in California, some of those jobs are working on some of these farms, back-breaking labor. And of course, landscaping, working with their hands, blue-collar jobs that a lot of people, sadly snub at and say they're better than that. Well, here we have a sort of response by some of these people at these protests using leaf blowers. You gotta love it. They've got this is an electronic one. Maybe they got the backpack one too. Using leaf blowers to blow away the gases that are being shot in their direction to sort of, disperse the crowds. LA protesters use leaf blowers against tear gas shelling. Here they are. God, this deserves the national anthem, doesn't it? I mean, it's just incredible. Like, these are people who I believe are heroes, right? They're fighting for the cities that they live in, and they're doing what they need to do. Now, you see the destruction, and you can be manipulated in a way to say, no, Dave, what are you talking about? This is terrible. But you have to remember, the people didn't ask for this. ICE came into their land, ICE came into their neighborhood, and then Governor Gavin Newsom, right, leader of the fourth largest economy in the world. California was fifth largest. It is now the fourth largest. I think it passed Japan or something crazy like that. Is not even asking for a National Guard. Trump calls on 2,000 National Guard, 300 show up. They don't even know what they're doing, right? And the people are saying no, they're not going to stop. Here's the reporter we shared earlier, the Australian reporter who was shot with a rubber bullet live on air. Here's what she has to say about her condition.
Lauren, you and your crew were caught up in the chaos earlier. How are you?
Peter, I'm okay. My cameraman Jimmy and I are both safe. This is just one of the unfortunate realities of reporting on these kinds of incidents. It has been a really volatile day on the streets of Los Angeles, and I do want to show you the scene here tonight. We are in downtown Los Angeles right now, and this entire area has been cleared out. The city warned that if anyone moves through here, they will be arrested on the spot.
All right. And again, do I think that this will de-escalate the situation? No, I don't. I think, like I said before, the Los Angeles County as a whole actually has a larger population than most states in our country. It is an enormous amount of people that live there. And these people aren't going to be going anywhere. Here's what the mayor, Karen Bass, had to say about the National Guard being deployed and what's going on the streets.
No, my disappointment is I've been talking to the federal government for days. I was hoping to prevent this situation from happening. I was trying to encourage the administration that if they deployed the National Guard in Los Angeles, it would create a sense of chaos. It's the last thing our city needs. Our city is still trying to recover from the wildfires. And you just think about how so many people were impacted by that. And that's an example of where the administration was helpful.
All right, so they continue. And actually, here we have former asylum seeker, huge star, Pedro Pascal, right? Huge star here, discussing about what it means to be an American.
I want people to be safe and to be protected, and I want very much to live on the right side of history. And I'm an immigrant. My parents are refugees from Chile. I myself was a refugee. We fled a dictatorship, and I was privileged enough to grow up in the U.S. And after asylum in Denmark, and if it weren't for that, I don't know what would have happened to us. And I don't know, the people that try to make you scared, and fight back.
Yeah, of course, fight back. And that doesn't mean use violence. That means stand up, protest peacefully, and there'll be images of people standing on top of burnt police cars, and that'll be used to justify the weaponization of the federal government. But you have to realize that in protests, the majority of people are peaceful. Here we have a confrontation that has happened where it is confirmed that ICE officials are actually staying at hotels in Pasadena. Now, why is this interesting? It's interesting in part because Pasadena and Altadena, I lived right near there. We were looking at homes to buy there before the wildfires hit. So many people are displaced from those wildfires, staying at these hotels, and ICE infiltrating these hotels as a way to sort of find out who's undocumented. It's so unneeded, especially as this area recovers from one of the deadliest wildfires in the history.
If the hotel wanted to refuse them basically as guests there, they could, but that's their right as a business basically. And then if there's complaints about their business, that are business bureaus that'll answer or call their management and or their upper management or whoever owns the hotel.
They can very well make a formal complaint like as a collective maybe.
Of course, but there wouldn't be a criminal matter.
So what they're saying is ICE, the hotels themselves can decide to turn business away to anybody. Now, a lot of times they might not know who's ICE. They show up plain clothes, they're trying to blend in, and then boom, they want to handcuff you and disappear you, and you don't really get due process. Now, my reporting that I've learned is that the AC Hotel in Pasadena has now kicked out these ICE agents. And they've done so by seeing the response from the public saying this is wrong. This is absolutely wrong. Here's a very powerful moment where we hear chants and I think a drum line from some of the protesters. And I know a lot of people here are, have the critical thinking skills necessary to understand what's going on. But just remember, if you do see media that wants to stoke division and fear, just remember the people of LA are peaceful as they sing and chant and march for their brothers and sisters.
We are Los Angeles. We are Los Angeles. We are Los Angeles.
And let me just say this. Any amount of National Guard deployed to LA right now is not going to de-escalate. And I'll tell you why. The people that are protesting, they all know somebody that's either family or friends or neighbors that might be undocumented, might be here illegally. They all have a reason to fight for the safety, fight for the inclusion, and fight for really, frankly, the respect of these people who in a lot of cases came over here either years ago or tried to do it through the right means. And we live in this world now where people will kind of like campaign on, do you want to give free healthcare to undocumented immigrants? And where I stand on that is, everybody in the United States should pretty much get free healthcare. And by free, I mean a system that we all pay into. And make no mistake about it, the undocumented population in California contributes taxes. If they were here as legal citizens, they would probably contribute more taxes. Undocumented Californians contribute $8.5 billion in taxes to state and local communities. Nearly half of that is in sales taxes, property taxes, business income taxes. They are here, they are working, they are contributing. California is a state that gives more to the federal government than it receives, right? It's called a donor state. It makes, like I said, it's the fourth largest economy in the world. So it pays more in federal taxes than it receives in benefits. If California wanted to cut itself out from the rest of the country, it would be an extremely successful state. Now, doesn't mean it doesn't have problems. No, of course it's got problems. I think this past year it had a deficit, but I mean, of course, look at the federal deficit. We're in the trillions right now, right? So it's got its problems that need to be worked on, absolutely. But this idea that California is some sort of welfare state is laughable. Not the case whatsoever. Okay, coming up next, I want to discuss Greta Thunberg and what she is describing as a kidnapping that has happened. So this is a developing story. We don't have all the information, but as you guys know, Greta Thunberg, who is a volunteer activist, has boarded a ship that has been sailing to Gaza to provide, I believe, baby formula amongst other, food items and medical items that can be used to help the people. Their idea, even though the ship is small, is to have a passageway where humanitarian aid can get through to the people in need. Well, she has posted this cryptic update. Have a listen.
My name is Greta Thunberg and I am from Sweden. If you see this video, we have been intercepted and kidnapped in international waters by the Israeli occupational forces or forces that support Israel. I urge all my friends, family and comrades to put pressure on the Swedish government to release me and the others as soon as possible.
So she obviously pre-recorded this and had it ready to go if communication was lost and it was believed they were kidnapped. Now, this is absolutely insane. On the negative side of things, commenters will say, oh, she's seeking attention, and how brave and bold for a keyboard warrior to say that. This is somebody who's quite literally putting her life on the line to be a martyr for a cause that can save lives. We need to look at the brains of people like her, study it, and try to replicate that in our youth, because this is somebody who has spent their entire life fighting for what she believes is justice, whether it's environmental or in this case, the starvation of a bunch of kids and innocent lives in Gaza. Israel says all activists from the aid boat traveling to Gaza are safe and unharmed. But what's so interesting is by having Greta Thunberg on the ship, they are making it very hard. There's a lot. The world is watching right now. If it comes out that she is killed during this, it would be unconscionable to see, and there would be a bigger worldly response than we're seeing right now. But here it is, moments where they're showing video of the people that were from this ship. They're saying that everyone's safe and unharmed, but what comes next will be really interesting, right? They're passing out food and whatnot. Folks are calling this a kidnapping, saying that if this happened on open waters, how does the Israel defense how do they have sort of the ability to control their ship? Here's footage from the Madeleine as IDF diverts boat to Israel.
Okay, they're dropping chemicals on us. They're dropping chemicals on us. We don't know what it is.
They're saying they're dropping chemicals on us. We don't know what it is.
Look at this.
And they're showing some ashy white substance. Now, the current belief is that what they dropped on there is in part to make the goods from the ship unusable. And all the baby formula that they were carrying and all the other items are now compromised, so they can't be used. That's the idea. Whether that's the case or not, yet to be seen. From The Guardian, they say Gaza aid boat activists to be shown October 7th attacked footage, says Israel Defense Minister as it happened. Now, I think this is foolish because everyone who knows and is involved in this conversation knows how atrocious the attacks on October 7th were. Of course, it's a terrorist attack. It was brutal. There were brutal killings and other things that went down that were just an absolute nightmare, straight out of hell. And yet, that all happened, but it's the retaliatory response that has killed, some are saying up to 80% of the deaths in Gaza have been innocent lives. And even others are reporting that they've only included the death toll for people that they have found. So everyone who's under the rubble, even though the death toll says 50,000 people, some are saying it is in the hundreds of thousands of people. There are no schools or universities or even hospitals really left. And there might be one or two hospitals, makeshift as it is, left in Gaza. So this idea that their minds will be changed based on seeing the October 7th attacks. It's like, listen, the problem with Hamas is in their attempt to attack them, they're just strengthening those evil sort of people because they're able to recruit new evil people. And it's proven that their response has not been the solution that needs to happen. What comes next? I have no idea. We'll be here to cover it. And I truly mean this. I hope Greta and everyone else on board is safe. And I hope there is I can't even fathom saying a happy ending to this story because there will be no happy ending. But I hope there is a safe ending and that they can get aid to where it needs to go to the innocent people. This is going to do it for us this afternoon. We'll be back in the morning, so stick around for that. I'll see you then. I'm Dave, and this is The Rush.